Chucky. In Child's Play 3, Chucky is confiscated by a military academy colonel and thrown straight into the trash. The truck comes by, empties the dumpster, and the garbage collector hears a voice screaming from inside. He thinks someone is trapped in the middle of the trash and climbs in to help, but while he's searching, Chucky sneaks out and gets into the driver's seat and turns on the compactor. By the time the man realizes what's happening, it's already too late. The machine finishes the job. However, some people say that Chucky's most brutal kill happened more than 20 years later, in Cult of Chucky. In it, Nika Pierce is committed to a psychiatric hospital after being blamed for the deaths of her own family. The problem is that she knows the real culprit is Chucky. Among the patients is Claire, a woman who is also hospitalized and ends up becoming another victim of the doll. During the night, Claire is strapped to the bed with restraints. Chucky grabs an oxygen tank and starts smashing the glass skylight above her. Claire can't escape, and the shards end up killing her. And Chucky even turns the scene into a joke.
Sometimes I scare myself.
Jigsaw. In Saw 3, Jigsaw puts Timothy Young at the center of one of the franchise's cruelest tests. Timothy is the man who was driving drunk when he hit and killed Dylan, Jeff Denlin's 8-year-old son. Now, years later, he is placed in front of the child's father, and Jigsaw's goal isn't just to test Timothy, it's to test whether Jeff can forgive. Timothy is trapped in the so-called rack, a device inspired by an old stretching rack. The mechanism slowly begins twisting his arms and legs, forcing Jeff to watch as the situation completely spirals out of control. And here's the most important part. Jeff has a choice. He can try to save Timothy or continue feeding his hatred for the man who destroyed his family. The problem is that while he hesitates, the machine keeps working. When Timothy's head is also forced to turn, Jeff finally realizes that he can't wait any longer. He tries to act, but it's already too late. The scene is cruel because it turns revenge into a test and puts the protagonist in the worst possible position, saving someone he considers responsible for the greatest tragedy of his life, Freddy Krueger. In A Nightmare on Elm Street, 3 dream warriors, Philip is one of the teenagers admitted to Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital. He suffers from sleepwalking and believes that his strange episodes are just another psychological problem. Except that in reality, Freddy Krueger is attacking the teenagers in their dreams. Philip also has a very specific ability. He likes building puppets, and Freddy realizes exactly how he can turn that into a nightmare. During a dream, Philip encounters a small version of Freddy that comes to life. The killer then turns the boy's own body into a puppet, controlling his movements as if he were pulling strings. The boy tries to resist, but he can't. To the other patients, the situation just looks like another episode of sleepwalking. The scene becomes even more surreal when Freddy appears gigantic. He leads the boy to the top of the building, and when he cuts the strings, Philip falls to his death. And to make everything even more impressive, the sequence was built mainly with practical effects, using makeup, prosthetics, and physical mechanisms to create the illusion of Philip being controlled. Pennywise. In Welcome to Derry, we are introduced to Lily, Phil, Teddy, Susie, and Ronnie, who spend the first episode investigating Maddie's disappearance. Anyone who watched it was sure this would be the show's main group of protagonists, but we were very wrong. While they're watching a movie at the theater, Maddie appears on the screen and his face starts changing. Then a creature breaks through the projection and enters the theater. The attack is quick and completely destroys the expectation that those 5 would be the main characters. Phil and Teddy are killed, while Susie also fails to escape. Ronnie gets trapped in the projection booth and can only get out once the creature disappears. Lily manages to escape with her into the lobby, but realizes too late that she's still holding nothing but Susie's hand. Here, Welcome to Derry breaks a silent rule of horror, killing children and characters who seem to be the protagonists. Come on, seriously. I really like Teddy. But there are 2 other deaths worth mentioning. In It Chapter 2, Adrian Mellon is attacked by a group of men after leaving a carnival in Derry. He is thrown off a bridge, and when he tries to call for help, Pennywise appears. The creature pretends to offer help, but turns the moment into another victim, this time without a heart. Meanwhile, Vicky Fuller is lured underneath a set of bleachers by Pennywise, who exploits her insecurity about a birthmark. He pretends to form a connection with the girl, promises to help her, and uses that very trust against her.
You're supposed to say 3.
Michael Myers. In Halloween Kills, Big John and Little John live in the old Myers family home, the very place where Michael killed his own sister decades earlier. They know the story, but they don't believe there's anything supernatural behind it, until they start hearing noises around the house. The 2 split up to investigate and end up finding Michael. Big John is attacked first, and Little John soon suffers the same fate. But Michael doesn't stop there. When Allison and Cameron arrive at the house, they find the bodies of the 2 men arranged together in the bedroom, recreating a photograph of the couple that was displayed in the house. It's a detail that makes the scene even stranger. But there's another moment in the movie worth mentioning. Karen takes Michael's mask off and uses it to lure him out into the street, where the Haddonfield crowd is waiting, led by Tommy Doyle, the boy Laurie was babysitting in the first movie. They take Michael down and start celebrating, thinking they've finally won. Little do they know, the crowd manages to take him down and believes they've finally finished him off. But Michael gets back up and starts attacking attacking everyone around him. One by one, the townspeople become his victims, until Tommy is the last one standing in front of him. Michael knocks him down, and finishes the job with the baseball bat that Tommy himself had brought to kill him. The moment is a complete reversal. The entire town came together to take Michael down, but their fear and collective violence only turned the hunt into another opportunity for him to start killing again. Ghostface. Scream has many shocking deaths, but for me, the most brutal one is still the opening scene of the first movie. It all begins with Casey Becker home alone when she receives a call from a stranger. The conversation starts almost like a game, but quickly turns into an interrogation about horror movies. On the other end of the line is Ghostface, and he makes it clear that he knows where Casey lives. The situation gets worse when Casey discovers that her boyfriend is tied up outside. Ghostface turns everything into a game. She has to correctly answer questions about horror movies to survive, except Casey gets one answer wrong, and that's when the game ends. She sees Steve being killed and realizes that the killer was serious. Casey tries to escape, but Ghostface breaks into the house and starts chasing her. In the end, she is killed and her body is left in the backyard for her parents to find. Another death worth mentioning happened 15 years later in Scream 4. Olivia Morris is at home talking to Jill and Kirby on the phone when Ghostface calls. He tells them that he's hiding inside the closet. Kirby opens the closet in Jill's house, and there's nothing there. Then comes the answer. He never said he was in their closet. He's in Olivia's bedroom in the house next door. The killer comes out of the closet and attacks her. Olivia tries to fight back, but ends up being attacked and thrown against the window, while Jill and Kirby watch everything without being able to do absolutely anything. Ghostface then throws her back onto the bed and continues the attack. When Sydney arrives, she finds Olivia lifeless. The Creeper. In Jeepers Creepers, siblings Derry and Trish are driving home when they begin being followed by a mysterious truck. The two see the driver throwing something into a pipe near an abandoned church. Derry gets out to investigate, falls into the pipe, and ends up in a place filled with bodies. That driver isn't an ordinary killer, he's the Creeper, a creature that awakens every 23 years to feed on human body parts. Derry is the one who investigates the mystery the most. He finds clues, convinces Trish to keep going, and tries to figure out what they're dealing with. So when the two finally make it to a police station, it seems like the worst is over. But it's not. Even surrounded by police officers, the Creeper manages to capture Derry. Trish begs him to take her instead of her brother, but the creature simply ignores her plea and flies away. And here's the real cruelty of the ending. Derry seemed like the protagonist. He was the one driving the investigation and making the decisions. Even so, he's the one who loses. The movie then cuts to an abandoned warehouse. Derry is dead while the Creeper works around him. Only afterward do we understand what happened. The creature removed his eyes and now uses them as part of itself. Leatherface. In the 1974 The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Pam and Kirk are two young people who leave the group to look for gas at a seemingly abandoned farmhouse. Kirk enters the house first and ends up being killed by Leatherface. Pam follows him and finds a completely disturbing place filled with objects made from human remains. She tries to escape, but Leatherface catches her and hangs her on a butcher's hook. And here's what makes it even scarier. Almost nothing is shown. The camera mainly follows Pam's desperate reaction. The movie doesn't need to show the impact directly. You just need to understand where she is and see the character's desperation. This also fits the movie's style. Despite its reputation for being extremely violent, much of the horror works precisely because the camera leaves so much to the imagination. Almost 50 years later, Netflix's Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2022 does exactly the opposite. A bus full of influencers and investors arrives in town for an auction. When Leatherface appears, nobody runs. Everyone pulls out their phones and starts live streaming, thinking it's a performance. Then the killer turns the place into a massacre. The sequence is fast, chaotic, and much more explicit. Leatherface moves through the bus attacking several people one after another, while the survivors desperately try to escape. The Cenobites. In 1987's Hellraiser, Frank Cotton is a man obsessed with increasingly extreme experiences. He finds a mysterious box, solves the puzzle, and ends up summoning the Cenobites, creatures that don't make much distinction between pleasure and suffering. Frank is taken to another dimension, but manages to return to the world of the living in an incomplete form. Hidden in the attic, he convinces Julia, his sister-in-law, to lure men to the house. Frank kills these victims and uses their blood and flesh to rebuild his own body. When he finally regains a human appearance, he kills his own brother Larry and starts using his skin to fool Kirsty, his niece. But Kirsty discovers the truth and realizes that the man in front of her isn't her father. It's Frank. She manages to get her hands on the lament configuration and uses the box to summon the Cenobites again. Frank tries to attack Kirsty, but the creatures get there first. Chains with hooks emerge from different directions and latch onto Frank, pulling him in every direction. Unable to escape, he looks at Kirsty and says just one thing.
Jesus wept.
Right afterward, the Cenobites take him away for good, and that line has an interesting story behind it. In the original script, it was just a swear word, but Andrew Robinson, who plays Larry and Frank, refused to swear and improvised an expression he heard as a child: death. In Final Destination 3, Ashley and Ashlyn are two students who survived the roller coaster accident at the beginning of the movie. Now they're at a tanning salon thinking they're finally safe. Except death is already at work. A cold drink starts causing problems with the tanning bed's control panel. Then a draft knocks an object over, which hits a plant and causes a shelf to fall. It all seems random, but every little accident pushes the girls toward their tragic fate. When they realize the tanning beds are overheating, they try to get out. But the shelf is blocking the doors, the heat keeps rising until the situation becomes fatal. The scene even plays with the character's own past. While they're trapped inside, Love Roller Coaster starts playing, reminding them of the very roller coaster they managed to avoid. But Final Destination Bloodlines also had a death worth mentioning. Eric convinces his brother Bobby that there's a way to trick death, stop his heart, and then be revived. So Bobby deliberately eats peanuts knowing he's allergic inside a hospital. The plan was perfect, except they did it right next to an MRI machine, and Eric's phone gets sucked into it, sending the magnetic field to maximum power. Eric's piercings start getting pulled toward the machine, and then a wheelchair hits him and crushes him. Meanwhile, Bobby tries to survive his own allergic reaction. He manages to use the EpiPen in time, but a spring from the vending machine gets launched by the magnetic field and hits him in the head. Art the Clown. In Terrifier 2, Allie is a friend of Sienna, the protagonist of the movie. Before becoming Art the Clown's target, she had already crossed paths with the killer. When Art shows up in costume asking for candy, Allie realizes there's something very wrong with the guy, but ends up giving him candy anyway. It seems like a harmless interaction, but shortly afterward, Art shows up at her house. Allie is alone in her bedroom when the clown begins his attack, and what makes this scene so disturbing isn't just what happens, but how long it lasts. Art turns the bedroom into a complete nightmare and prolongs Allie's suffering far beyond what would be typical in a slasher. He keeps her conscious while continuing the attack, and the scene only ends when she can no longer react. Afterward, Art leaves her body arranged in a macabre way so that her mother will find her daughter when she returns home. It's precisely that length that made the sequence so memorable. Instead of using quick cuts to hide most of the action, director Damien Leone lets the camera follow the scene for long stretches. The result was so extreme that there were numerous reports of viewers feeling sick, walking out of screenings, or even needing medical attention. Jason Voorhees. In Friday the 13th Part 7, Judy is one of the campers who ends up crossing Jason's path. She's alone inside a tent when the killer appears. Judy doesn't even manage to get out of her sleeping bag before Jason grabs her and starts swinging her against a tree. One single hit, and it's over. But this scene was almost much longer. The original version showed Jason repeating the hit several times until the MPAA demanded cuts for the movie to receive an R rating. And ironically, the cut actually helped. Instead of turning the death into a long sequence, the movie delivers a quick and unexpected impact. The scene became so famous that it turned into one of the most memorable deaths in the franchise, and it even got a similar version in the remake, only much more brutal. In the 2009 movie, Amanda is trapped inside a sleeping bag and hung over a fire. Her boyfriend runs to save her and steps into a bear trap. He gets stuck several feet away, forced to watch his girlfriend die. There's also the famous scene from Jason X when the villain encounters Adrian, a scientist who intended to study him. He puts her head into liquid nitrogen and then smashes it against a counter. It's hard to talk about Jason's kills without mentioning this one. And if you want to see the complete evolution of Jason Voorhees, click and watch. The video is really good. See you there.